So this is at Union Station Park. And the U.S. Park Police intervened. This is crazy. They're taking down American flags and replacing it with the Palestinian flag. This is insane. Welcome to Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. Got a lot to get into. I want to thank my guest today for joining me. Welcome to the program, Jason Buttrill, Chief Researcher of the Glenn Beck program, along with John Doyle, BlazeTV contributor and host of Heck Off Commie, who I believe has gotten a haircut since I saw you last.
That's not true.
Oh. Well, maybe he just combed it. I don't know.
I think I washed it and then I went to bed and then the pressure from the pillow, contracted it. And so it wasn't just everywhere. But no, not yet.
So I want to I want to go through some of this FBI director testimony that we have. Well, did you guys watch it? I don't know if you watched it. Don't answer me. Okay. FBI Director Chris Wray testified on Capitol Hill today about the FBI investigation into Thomas Crooks, of course, the man who shot President Donald Trump. And as with the testimony earlier this week from now disgracefully resigned Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, wasn't resigned at the beginning of the week. That's how terribly the testimony went for her. Okay. But his testimony, Wray's testimony, seemed to only solidify more questions the American public should have about how all of this was allowed to happen and whether it was, sheer incompetence, perhaps because of, DEI hires or more of an inside job. So I want to play some of these clips from this testimony. And let's start with the first one here, where Christopher Wray talks about Thomas Crooks using encrypted messaging apps. Watch.
Tell us what you can about the encrypted platforms we've heard about.
So, one of the things that we're drilling into hard with the shooter in an effort to try to learn more about his state of mind, his motive, his ideology, his context, everything else, is to look at all of his devices, any social media accounts he had, et cetera. And one of the things we've learned in finally getting into his phone, which was also a significant technical challenge from an encryption perspective, but in addition, once we got on the phone, it turned out he was using some encrypted messaging application.
Now, remember, they said that they did retrieve a second phone on him that had, I believe they said 27 contacts in it. Seems very strange for a 20-year-old to be using burner phones, burner accounts, and having overseas, they said overseas accounts. Encrypted accounts. We don't know if they didn't say bank accounts. They just said accounts. I would assume bank. I haven't heard that they've said. But we're hearing about this 20-year-old nobody who didn't have very many friends, we hear, seemed a little bit of a loner. And now all of a sudden, there's all these very interesting details that are coming out about him, especially considering the Oversight Project pinged a phone that frequented his home and his work, also pinged it back in 2023 over near an FBI field office in D.C. Nothing to see there, though, I'm sure. Let me play a couple more for you. Go ahead.
Can I just say, I'm glad the Heritage Oversight Project is looking deeper, apparently, than the FBI is.
You don't trust the FBI?
Imagine that. How have they screwed us in the past 4 years? But it's just interesting to me that we just kind of blow past the fact that Heritage is always like, oh, yeah, we pinged all these cell phones, and this is where they are.
I know.
You can do that?
I said that. That was exactly what I said when I saw that. I was like, wait a second. You don't have to be involved in the investigation to be able to do that? That's terrifying.
I know. I mean, just imagine what the government's doing.
I know.
If random think tank can do that. It's crazy. I will say, though, also on that one clip, it's amazing how long he took to get anywhere close to an answer.
Yeah.
Which he never even really gave an answer. But he filibustered that entire thing to basically say, yeah, it's difficult to encrypt some of this stuff. There was some encrypted messaging apps. Okay.
Right.
And
What were they? What were the conversations that took place?
between Cheadle saying I refer you to the FBI, and then Wray saying I refer you back to the Secret Service.
Mm-hmm.
It's just around and around we go. I feel like this is going to go down into like one of the worst investigations ever, right along with the Las Vegas shooter. I'm getting strong Las Vegas shooter vibes here.
100%.
Good God.
Yeah. So let me play a couple more for you guys, and then let me get your thoughts. So let's listen to Chris Wray talk about. Now, we had already read about this, but listen to Chris Wray talking about Thomas Crooks having an explosive transmitter with him on the roof.
In addition to the two devices that we recovered out of his vehicle, there were receivers for those two explosive devices with the devices. And then on the shooter himself, when he was killed by law enforcement, he had a transmitter with him.
Oh, also, they recovered 3 explosive devices with remote detonators as well. Watch.
What about the bombs that we've heard about in the shooter's car?
So again, the FBI lab is exploiting those explosive devices.
Yep.
We've recovered 3 devices, 2 in his vehicle and 1 back in his residence.
But perhaps the most insane part of all of this was the acknowledgement that this 20-year-old flew a freaking drone. Secret Service can't have drones. Secret Service, where was the drone? Where was the drone? No idea. You can buy them on Amazon for a very small amount of money. I have no idea why. How many millions or trillions of dollars does the Secret Service get from our taxpayer money every year? I would imagine quite a lot. And they can't figure out how to fly a drone over the area of the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. But somehow this 20-year-old was able to fly a drone over that same area the day of the shooting for like 11 freaking minutes. Watch.
Around 3:50 p.m., 4 o'clock in that window on the day of the shooting, that the shooter was flying the drone around the area.
I'm trying very hard not to curse. It is incomprehensible to me. This is incomprehensible to me. How is that allowed to happen?
I think that you maybe have a little bit too much faith in the system, like that there would be people who could hold each other accountable and be like, hey, maybe let's not have this go on. I think that we are coming at it from a very well-meaning patriotic perspective that doesn't really take into account the rot within the system. Like I see a lot of people, for example, watching these hearings going on and they're like, how could this all happen? And it's like in the last 2-3 weeks, Donald Trump and Joe Biden were both being uncooperative with the regime. Donald Trump was supposed to go away, and by the grace of God, that did not happen. And they did actually make Joe Biden go away. They like straight up cooed that guy and nothing was, it just happened and his family couldn't do anything about it. But the donor class and the media were able to put pressure on this guy to take him out of the race and install Kamala. And I don't want to get too into the weeds with a lot of the details because I think that those are honestly like red herrings, because the first instinct that people had when they saw all these events play out were, okay, something is weird here. Something's not right. And if you try to figure out what happened with, say, 90% accuracy, that's a very small target. It's a lot easier to kind of go with your hunch and say, I have maybe a 60 or 70% accurate conception of what happened. Because when you get too specific with things, then they can come out and say, oh, well, you said this. Well, this was debunked. And then people start seeing that and they think, oh, well, the whole conspiracy must just be not true and it was just a big fluke. So I think that we really need to understand the role that the media has played in all of this and not underestimate how possible it is for these people to spend 10 years spreading these lies about Donald Trump. He's a threat to your existence. And then for some kid who's obviously maladjusted and like disgusting to take inspiration from that and do something like this, probably, sure, with the full knowledge of law enforcement. And then they, step aside and claim incompetence that they had no idea. But I think that the conspiracy is really just that there were hundreds of thousands of people involved in it without even their knowledge necessarily, just playing the role that was orchestrated for them, knowing that something like this would happen down the line.
I mean, it does also like either I don't believe that it was just incompetence. I don't. I do think that there was something more sinister happening. But if it was sheer incompetence, it is only by the grace of God or perhaps people's perception that Secret Service is like super hard to break that we haven't already had presidential candidates or presidents killed. Because it's like, if this is the secrets, if this is what's happening every single time a president enters a building, every single time a former president or someone running for office is holding a rally or going somewhere, this is the lack of security that they have. It just must be the perception that like, oh, well, we're never going to be able to get past Secret Service, that they haven't already been shot.
Yeah. I hate to say this again, but I have worked alongside Secret Service before, and these are not the standards. These are not the usual protocols. Take from that what you want, but this is not.
I know what I'm taking from that.
That's well. I mean, I've heard lots of other people, including the world record holder of a sniper kill, also basically said the same thing. I don't see how this gets done without some kind of help. To address the drone thing, you can be random Joe Schmo, in a park with a drone and get rolled up on by like some city park ranger or even a police officer wanting to know if you have your license.
Right.
You've done shots. I know, worked with a similar crew that I have, where they've talked in depth about the schooling you have to go through to get that. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So
you had to get like FAA clearance.
Yes,
to fly the drone in downtown Detroit.
Right. Now imagine a location where a president's going to speak, where the Secret Service should have done advance on that weeks in advance. They're there at least a day before, doing bomb sweeps and all that stuff. But a guy's out there flying just a random drone. I mean, it boggles my mind how that could even happen. To address the bombs and the remote detonation devices. In a perfect scenario, I'm gonna say this attempt, even though he didn't kill the president, was actually successful because he drew blood from a former president of the United States. So in that, he was successful. To not have any kind of research and development phase where you don't just say like, hey, I think I'm gonna build a bomb that can remotely detonate and I've got the triggers to do it. You don't just do that, and say, okay, and hope that's gonna work. You're testing that. You're finding the explosives. There's a lot of research that goes into that, and then the development phase where you're testing all that material. Where is the evidence of him doing all that? Right. We've seen nothing from that. The FBI said nothing about that. Did they not know? He said they got into their phone. He made a big point of, we broke the encryption. It was difficult. Okay, what did you find off of that? There has to be some kind of R&D element and research. I mean, there was one thing where he said, oh yeah, he looked at how far away, Lee Harvey Oswald was from JFK when he shot him. Really? That's some random Google search that maybe 100 million other people have probably Googled the same thing, just, for S and Gs.
Right.
That's all you got? No, I don't buy that for a second. Now, what is it? I don't know. I was just looking at social media when I walked onto set where one of the Gab people, one of the heads of Gab, said, okay, we found an account. It might be the shooter, Crooks. These are some of the things they said, and you can see it on Twitter right now. They said we breaking protocol before they come in and service a warrant, and it's on Twitter right now. So you can read the stuff that this person, who might be Crooks, said.
Did you read it?
It was pretty much all anti-Trump stuff, pro-Biden stuff. Again, they're not
really.
They haven't confirmed it's him. They think it might be him, but yeah, it's on there right now.
Which actually is very respectable to do, because one of the weirdest things about this day and age is that anytime someone does something like this, they just wipe all their social media accounts like that. Yeah. Before you or I can go read for ourselves what these people had to say, read for ourselves, they make it unavailable, and then they want to just give you little breadcrumbs of whatever they want you to know.
And then they'll bitch at the citizens for putting misinformation, disinformation out there. Well, if you don't want that to happen, make all the information available.
Yeah.
That's the only way to do it. Otherwise, speculation runs wild, conspiracy theories run wild. I mean, oh my gosh. The more this goes on, it's just going to get even worse.
The same thing with the shooter in Nashville or in Tennessee, where we weren't allowed to know why, even though these people, they always keep manifestos and they want to be the main character and get a time. I mean, even the Columbine kids, they had like a home video camera, and they filmed like their entire preparation when they were building bombs. So there's definitely something there that's being overlooked. But remember even like the whole Black Lives Matter thing, when that culminated in Dallas, with that guy who shot police officers, and then it was swept under the rug, and then you didn't see Black Lives Matter again until 2020 and since then. So these things always have a way of being disappeared after the fact so that people can't hold the media accountable for their role in propagating lies, which get people killed.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a quick break. I'm gonna kick you guys out for a second, and then I'm gonna bring you back in. Will you stay? Will you stay?
Fine.
Will you stay? Okay. All right. We've got some new guests coming on. You're not gonna want to miss. First, we want to thank our sponsor, Patriot Mobile. So, Patriot Mobile is, guys. I am gonna be very clear. I don't think that I've come across a more patriotic, pro-America, willing to put their money where their mouths are, profitable company more than Patriot Mobile. I mean, I know personally their CEO, Glenn Story, and his wife, Jenny, they are like the biggest patriots I've ever met in my life. They are constantly funding, they're sponsoring candidates. They are funding, trying to flip school boards, which they have been successful in. They really, really are on the front lines fighting against all of the left's woke agenda and, of course, fighting for our rights that we all hold so dear. So here's what you can do. Go check them out. If you want to support them, all you have to do is go to their website, go check them out. They're America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. So if you're still with Big Mobile, you're doing it wrong. They're going to give you the same dependable nationwide coverage. You're probably also going to save money. But on top of that, you're also going to know that you're not taking your son. If you're doing with Big Mobile, they're going to take a portion of your bill and they're going to donate it to left-leaning causes. Patriot Mobile is going to actually fund causes that you are fighting for, not against. Go to patriotmobile.com/Sara and you will get a free month when you use the offer code Sara. That is patriotmobile.com/Sara. Before I officially welcome my next guest this segment, I would like to play, just as a little refresher, all right, CNN having quite the field day with one of my guests, Dr. Simone Gold, after she visited the Capitol on January 6th. Watch.
An influential coronavirus skeptic who spreads vaccine misinformation far and wide and pushes a conspiracy that the pandemic was a, quote, pretext to take down the U.S., is also a licensed medical doctor and indicted January 6th insurrectionist.
Oh, no, that dirty word.
Nick Watt has more.
She wears a white coat, but not a face mask. Struts to a Ted Nugent tune in a promo video. Tours the country making false claims about the coronavirus.
Asymptomatic spread is not a thing.
And about the vaccines.
All the vaccine candidates have problems. They're all using the spike proteins, but the spike proteins themselves are what we doctors call pathogenic, meaning they're disease-causing.
That is not true.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so Dr. Gold, by the way, was already in D.C. on January 5th for a separate event. She went to the Capitol on January 6th with her friend John Strand, who was acting as her security. They were, of course, among 353 other Americans who went to the Capitol on January 6th, 2021. And they, of course, like many other Americans, faced multiple charges, including felony obstruction of an official proceeding, which carries a sentence of 20 years in prison. Now, Dr. Gold, who I'm about to introduce you to, if you don't already know her, took a plea deal, spent 60 days in prison. John was sentenced to 32 months. And after a year in prison, he was finally released today, this very day, this morning, thanks to the recent Supreme Court decision limiting the scope of the felony obstruction charge used to convict John and other J6ers. I want to welcome to the program John Strand, of course, former model and actor and insurrectionist, as we were discussing, and Dr. Simone Gold, founder of America's Frontline Doctors, and both of you, of course, being January 6th prisoners. Welcome, first of all. John, I don't want to be disrespectful, but Dr. Gold, I have been a very big fan of yours for many years now.
I'm a pretty big fan of her too.
Okay, great. I figured that you would appreciate that. So it's an honor to have you on, and I appreciate your courage and your bravery. So I want to ask you guys about all of this, but I want to get your quick reaction here on something that's actually happening today. Earlier today, we had pro-Palestine protesters fighting with Capitol Police, clashing with riot police. And I want to play a little bit of this. Just watch.
mostly peaceful.
Yeah. Maybe. Again, Capitol Police, so they are making their way to the Capitol. This is what's happening. And I'm just wondering, in light of, what happened to both of you, what should happen to these protesters?
We should be living under a nation of laws where there's no selective prosecution of people that the government doesn't like. Obviously, if we're arrested for behavior that was a fraction of that, we were just walking. Why are these people not being arrested?
Right. Yeah, exactly right. And have the books thrown at them also on top of that. So, John, you spent the last year in prison. You were facing 2 more. Let me ask you this first. How do you feel right now?
Amazing. I feel great. Yeah.
You take these steps out the door, and what's your first thought?
My first thought is, man, I can't wait to get back to work.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you have any resentment?
I have resentment against evil. So.
Do you feel like what was done to you was evil?
The most evil thing I've ever imagined or experienced. Yeah. It's completely evil.
What was the most evil thing that you experienced?
That prize would probably have to go to isolation. I was abused and, in a certain manner of speaking, tortured for a period of 4 months. Blocked from access to my attorneys, blocked from access to any information about what was going on and why it was happening to me, in an environment that was physically so miserable and oppressive that it would take several pages of the book to fully explain it. But it's not anything you would wish on your worst enemy.
How did they get away with this? I mean, it's like, that's right. It's actually outrageous. So I'm a lawyer as well as a doctor. And what happened just in this specific example, not only did they throw him into isolation really for an invalid reason, he had done a media interview. You don't go to isolation for that. But then they didn't allow any contact at all with the outside world, including his lawyers. He wasn't allowed to contact his lawyer. So how it happens,
is that not illegal?
Right. So then Congressman complained, and Congressman then went to the Bureau of Prison Directors, and then she said she'll do something about it, but then she doesn't do anything about it. So it happens because nobody is afraid that anything's going to happen to them if they do these things. That has to stop.
There's no accountability in the federal government whatsoever.
None. So you were in isolation because you did a media interview?
That's correct.
So I hear a lot about the conditions, and aside from isolation, right? The conditions of some of these prisons, or at least some of the cells that some of these J6 prisoners are kept in. What were the conditions like where you were? Aside from isolation.
Yeah, they're poor. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say that it's a Russian prison. I imagine Russian prisons are worse.
Right.
But here's the thing: prison is a terrible idea, generally speaking, just as a concept. I don't think it's ethical or biblical, and I don't think it's something we should be using most of the time. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of problems with prison before I get into the details of, what that facility happened to look like.
Right. Yeah.
I don't even really want to waste our time with it too much, but it's a terrible place. It's full of terrible people. And I'm not just speaking about the inmates. All the people there are, they have been subhumanized, the inmates, mm-hmm. and the staff treat them that way, mm-hmm. and it's basically a criminal factory. So they're just factorizing criminals. They're just producing them.
And so I want to ask you guys, and I know the answer to this question, but I want to just to reiterate for the audience. Were you violent in any way on January 6th?
I spent my career helping people. I mean, that's what I do. I'm a doctor, all day long for 25 years. I was a board certified emergency physician. And then I changed my entire life to help millions of people I wouldn't even meet. So it is ludicrous in the extreme to imagine I would ever hurt anybody. It's just utterly impossible. So of course we were not violent. We didn't do anything. All we did was walk peacefully, generally through the ropes.
You walked. You were not violent. You did not damage any property, right?
Correct, yeah.
You didn't take any property.
No.
There was nothing that they could have accused you of that they would have wanted to tack on some sort of extra additional punishment because how dare you, as my friend Adam, move a lectern 30 feet and then leave. They couldn't even say that for you guys.
No.
Let's be clear. The judge in John Strand's trial acknowledged that he wasn't violent and hadn't done anything. Full on acknowledged it. Was full on angry that he was speaking publicly. He said it from the bench that he didn't want him to speak out.
He increased the severity of the punishment to set a deterrence that no one should dare follow John Strand's example of criticizing the government. He sent me to prison for criticizing the government. Think about that for just a second. What country are we standing in? So, and he was incensed that my specific criticism was that it is not possible to have a impartial jury in Washington, D.C. And last time I checked, impartial is in the Sixth Amendment. And he thought that was ludicrous. But even if it was ludicrous, which obviously we know it's ludicrous to think that, I'm still allowed to say it.
And so you could have taken a plea deal. And is that why you didn't?
So I'm not sure if there's anyone else that had the plea deal that I had. It's pretty insane. And it's why I called my book Patriot Plea. And I tell actually the whole story of where God's taken me through this journey from the start of my life through the COVID lockdowns that turned my life upside down and everyone else's, and January 6th and all of that. But they gave me a golden parachute, essentially, because they were hanging a 20-year felony, as you know, over my head with 4 misdemeanors, for good measure. So 23 years of potential prison, $500,000 in potential fines. And then they said, or you can bend the knee to the federal government and we'll give you a single misdemeanor. I would have been home 2 years ago, living a normal life, so to speak, right? However, I said no. And I said no because their plea deal is a lie. And it wasn't just any ordinary lie. I would have said no if it was an ordinary lie because I just don't play around with lies. But this was a very diabolical lie, this plea deal. This plea deal set forth a summary of events or a statement of fact that everyone swears to. And it says this all has a basis in fact, including the 20-year felony that we're going to take off. So we aren't going to charge you with it, but you're admitting to being guilty for it anyway.
Right.
What kind of a plea deal is that?
Right.
I'll tell you what kind of a plea deal it is. It's a plea deal that sets up the government to set their narrative and to destroy the civil rights of everyone that gets within 10 feet of it. And it establishes their story that there was an insurrection and these people all planned it in advance and had a criminal mindset. They fabricated criminal intent out of thin air. So,
what, Dr. Gold, what was, I mean, obviously you took a plea deal for obvious reasons. You're a doctor, you have patients to see. You mentioned earlier, your entire career, you're helping people. So you had a lot of people to help. What was it like to watch your friend go through all of this?
May I just tell you, it's really, people say I couldn't go through it. I said, of course you couldn't go through it. You'll never meet another person like this who was given an opportunity to do 30 days or 60 days on a single misdemeanor, instead looked the government in the eye and walked right into the fire. I couldn't do it. And I think I'm relatively brave, more brave than the average bear.
I would say so.
And I couldn't do it. I had a medical license and a law license, a nonprofit to lead. But in addition to that, I just didn't think I could do it. That's very, very difficult. And I have tremendous admiration for somebody who stands up and says, no, I'm not going to participate in the lie because, you went to prison, so maybe other people downstream won't have to.
Mm-hmm. So do you guys, I'll ask this question to both of you. John, I'll ask you first. Do you think that January 6th was a setup by the deep state?
I know it was.
Tell me more.
I know it was because I've reviewed the evidence that everyone else has reviewed, and that's the reasonable conclusion. Also, I was there, so I know what happened and what didn't happen. I spoke to plenty of people to understand what their mindset was. I've reviewed the footage showing police officers violating their use of force protocol in many, many different instances. And now we're getting evidence to substantiate that there were not 40, which they've admitted to in court at one point, but like 200 different undercover operatives, and the list goes on. But something like that doesn't really happen that way by accident.
Right.
It defies reasonability. It's just not reasonable.
Yeah.
I do. Obviously, I think it's kind of obvious that there was planning to this. It couldn't have happened. Also, on that day, there was much less media around than you would have expected. This was a crowd of 1.5 million people, and there was a total absence of media, which is very strange. But what I focus on the most is the selective prosecution angle, because we have to live in a nation where people are treated equally under the law. That's the Equal Protection Amendment. It's part of our birthright as American citizens. We cannot have a system where you prosecute some people and don't prosecute other people. You just showed that clip at the top of the show, right? The prosecuting some. So I'm very focused on the selective prosecution angle.
Yeah. John, did you have a proper meal? Have you had a proper meal since you've been out?
It's happening tonight, and I'm looking forward to it.
You already know where you're going?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you share it or no?
Oh, Georgie's, one of my favorite restaurants in the country.
Wow, I've never even heard of it.
Here in Dallas, it's great.
Okay, well, now I'm embarrassed. I'm from here and I've never even heard of it. I'll have to check it out. I'm sure by the time they're watching this, you will have already enjoyed your meal, and I can't wait to hear how it feels. And then obviously you have this very sick beard.
Yes,
Is it stay? I mean, I'm telling you guys, literally hours ago, this man just was released from prison. He's got the prison beard to prove it.
So this was inspired by a story called The Count of Monte Cristo, and I applied it sort of as a Nazirite vow that comes from the Bible to dedicate something for a purpose. So I made a vow that I would not clip or touch my hair or my beard until I was free, until I got out of the prison system. So this is a year's worth of growth, and it is what it is. But I really did want people to get a sense for how long I was put through this and what the federal government is doing to its citizens, right? It's not about me, it's about the people. And if they're going to do this to Trump and then to Dr. Gold and then to me, it's going to be you next.
Yeah.
It's not going to stop until we stop it.
Yeah.
So I'm ready to stop it. If anyone wants to join me, let's go.
JohnStrand.com.
Yeah, please.
That was great. So, and then you mentioned the book.
Oh,
I'm very excited about.
I'm actually more excited about this than anything I've ever been in my entire life. And I really mean that.
So looking back on this, do you feel like God used you?
I don't feel like it. I know it.
You know it.
I know it with such specificity. It's actually kind of shocking. And I talk about that a lot in the book. I talk about a lot of things in the book. It's there's so much in there, and it's not going to be long or hard to read. It's actually quite exciting, and I kind of take a Hollywood actor movie approach to telling the story. And I tell a lot more than just the story of what I went through, although that's all in there with, and I mean bombshell, shocking levels of detail on corruption, on weaponization, on abject abuse and torment tactics and human rights violations and just filth that there are portions of the book where you have to put it down and come back to it because it's that heavy. But I tell more than just that. I explain from what I've learned for the entire time I've been on this planet and all the things I've gone through, including this last year, to understand what does all of this stuff mean. And like I was saying before, I don't think there's too much disagreement, left, right, everyone. I think we could get universal agreement on this simple premise. There's something wrong with our country. I don't think too many people, other than Jeff Bezos and that ilk, that are like, yeah, things are great, right? Everyone's like, yeah, there's something wrong. But we all disagree on how to fix it. However, I've also noticed that we're all doing the exact same thing. And we're expecting it to change somehow. That's the definition of insanity. But everyone's doing the same thing. So I think we need to sort of reset how we're looking at the whole big picture.
So johnstrand.com, when is the book coming out?
That's the really big question that I don't know yet, but as soon as possible.
So,
I'd love for it to come out before the election.
Yeah.
If that's possible. That's pretty soon.
I hope it does, because it sounds like there's a lot in there that Americans need to read.
I think it would make an impact if people would read it. So
yeah, well, make sure to keep up to date. JohnStrand.com. Also, America's Frontline Doctors, Dr. Gold. You are truly an inspiration. Listen, I'm known as the OG anti-vaxxer around here.
Nice.
So always, whenever I see a doctor who knows what they're going to be called when they stand up and go against the medical industrial complex, I just have such a deep respect for that. So thank you for all that you're doing. And John, thank you for joining us. I know you've got like the media hits lined up now that you're out of prison, but I do hope that you will get a good night's sleep.
I haven't had one in a year, so
that's what I was thinking. Maybe it's not tonight. You're traveling, but I can't imagine what it's been like just laying in an actual comfortable bed that maybe you can call your own and getting a good night's sleep. So I really
thank you.
I'll pray for that for you. Yeah,
appreciate that.
I think it's coming soon. So all right, well, make sure keep up to date with him. These interviews are so hard for me because I'm so happy that you're released, but I'm just so angry that this is being done to you guys. And so
that's a good thing. Pastor Tim Keller teaches that anger is really an expression that marks what you care about most.
Yeah.
So of course it must be directed properly, but we need to be very angry.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you guys. Please keep in touch. And we will have more with the panel when we return. First, we want to thank our sponsor very quickly, Relief Factor. So, look, maybe you've reached the age where you live in constant pain and you think the way that it is, it doesn't have to be that way, okay? The people over at Relief Factor, it was developed by doctors, but they decided, we don't want you guys to be on these loopy, you get loopy when you take this medication. We want to develop something that is all natural. So what they did is they developed Relief Factor, which is a very, very super potent, all natural anti-inflammatory. It targets the inflammation in the body, which typically is the root cause of your pain. I say this in front of a doctor and I feel very, very awkward. Okay.
Inflammation is the cause of most pain.
Thank you. Okay. See, a doctor's telling you, not me. It's Dr. Gold who's telling you inflammation. It's the inflammation that's causing your pain most likely. So try it. They've got a 3-week quick start and they've got a guarantee. So it's $19.95 to get that 3-week quick start and you've got nothing to lose except your pain. And if you can get out of pain, it could be life-changing. So go to relieffactor.com, get that 3-week quick start over at relieffactor.com. We're back with the guys. So USA Today, Rolling Stone, ABC News, and 42 other media outlets, they're like, oh, we got him, guys. We got JD Vance. We got him. This is going to destroy his career. That Trump Vance will never win because we just dug up an old interview with JD Vance and Tucker Carlson from 2021. And I'm just going to say it's got some really damning, incriminating stuff in there. Watch.
Saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made. And so they want to make the rest of the country miserable, too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it?
Where's the lie? That was what they thought was going to destroy him. Oh my God. He called them childless cat ladies. Oh no, whatever will we do?
They are kind of right in the sense that will, hurt him because women who are in that position are very aware of that and they know that that's why they're miserable, but they can't. It's like a vampire in sunlight. Like being exposed to that just makes them screech and want to dig their heels in even more. And so,
but they were never going to vote for.
They're already hardcore.
I know that.
Right? Like they're not. So it's not going to hurt him because these are already votes that we already have written off. We're not getting their vote.
I will say I don't enjoy every 3 months or so when we have to do this on Twitter where you'll get like handfuls of these, center right women who say, this is how we should be approaching women, blah, blah, blah. And they basically say that we need to stop making little jokes about like the 19th Amendment because if we don't start taking women more seriously, then they're going to go vote for the party which wants to have them be like sexually assaulted in the bathroom and have borders open and, chop kids' genitals off. And so that just puts me in a tough position because it's like, you want me to take you seriously, but you're like holding me hostage here. And like, if you don't start taking me seriously, I'm going to go vote for the people that are going to ruin everything. And it's like, get back in the car. It's like that kind of thing. Like, if you're not walking home, get back in the car. I'm sorry. Just calm down.
Yeah.
A little bit. I don't like it. But I love women.
Nobody loves women more than you.
It's true.
They say that to me too, because I've made that statement too on Twitter. And they're like, you can't joke about that because there is a certain movement that takes that seriously. And I'm like, guys, you can't tell me what I can and can't joke about. Also, I sort of mean it. But that's a conversation for another time, Jason.
I mean, he makes a good point about, people making these decisions that have no stake in our future.
Correct.
And I'm sorry. I mean, if you're not even considering the fact that having a family, raising those children up to be, responsible members of society. If you're not looking at that as a good thing, if you're only looking at, oh, no, we should be aborting all these children, or we should be flying off the handle from whatever random progressive cause there is or whatever, how serious are you as a person?
Right.
Really? Like, why should you be someone who's listened to? And it could be a man or a woman, whatever. But why should we seriously be listening to you when you have an opinion on the direction of this country? Like, really? Yeah. Like, what do you stand for besides destruction?
Right.
there's multiple different ways you could make that point or whatever, but I personally do not see anything wrong with what he said.
Not at all. It does give me the vibes of Matt Gaetz whenever, what was he asked by that reporter when they were like, did you make a tweet recently that seemed to indicate that you think that leftist women are all ugly and fat? And he's like, yes.
He said that.
Let them be offended. You know, what would you say to those who are offended? He was like, let them be offended. Like, I don't know what you want from me, lady. Have you ever seen them? But yeah, no, I mean, you bring up a great point, Jason, and I think that that's like the biggest takeaway from what JD Vance, well, it should be the biggest takeaway from what JD Vance said, which is like, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that there should be requirements in, like, you shouldn't just get a say in the direction of the country. You shouldn't just get a say in where my taxpayer money goes if there's some sort of a conflict of interest in you even just having a say.
It's absolutely true. I think that the GOP needs to really focus in on like voter ID and, voter integrity, things like that, whatever you want to call it, to make sure that people who are unproductive have a very difficult time voting. If you don't have children, if you're not paying taxes, you are always going to want equality, which is to say resources distributed from people who can produce to everyone so it's all equal or whatever. And that is incompatible with people who are productive who want, okay, take the reins off. I trust myself to be able to do something. That's meritocracy. I don't need equality. I mean, these things are literally opposite sides of the spectrum. And if we keep just importing people who come from impoverished countries, they have no skill set, they just want free stuff, handouts. I think Stephen Miller just tweeted out the other day, because somebody in Congress was complaining about, $10 billion for a border wall. And he said something like, this is what we spend just on welfare for illegal aliens, like every month or something. Just some absurd figure like that.
It's insane.
Yeah.
You need to cut that off and get rid of these people's ability to influence the political processes in this country, because otherwise it's just a numbers game and they're going to outnumber you, because they don't breed by having children. They breed by infecting minds, the woke mind virus, whether it's in education, importing people. You're never going to beat them unless you really start to take power and take it away from them.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. All right, we got to take another quick break. Want to thank our sponsor of this segment, Jase Medical. So Jase Medical is there. Look, if you believe in emergency food and you believe that you should be prepared in any sort of emergency event, you should also believe in what Jase Medical has to offer you, which is emergency medication. They have the Jase case, and it's a personalized emergency kit that has essential antibiotics and medications that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. It's very, very easy. You fill out a form online and you will have it in case you need it. You can also customize it for your family. They've got add-ons like EpiPens, ivermectin, and much more. And so you can't expect the unexpected, but it's going to happen eventually. And please, please be prepared. Go to jase.com, enter code Sara at a checkout for discount on your order. That is promo code Sara at jase.com. So I talked earlier in the program with my other guests about what's going on at the Capitol today with all of these anti-Israel protests. And I want to play our very own Julio Rosas is down there. Here is some of this shocking footage. Let's start watching it here. So this is at Union Station Park. And the U.S. Park Police intervened. This is crazy. They're taking down American flags and replacing it with the Palestinian flag. I question why the hell they're here. I mean, this is insane. Why are they here? Report all of them.
That video is so infuriating. He shot another angle of that where there's 3 big flagpoles right in front of Union Station with 3 big American flags. They took them all down, replaced them with, as you said, with the Palestinian flag, and burned the U.S. flags. This enrages me. I don't even want to watch it again. It's insane. I cannot believe we were talking off air. I cannot believe how give me 10 guys. Mm-hmm. There were not 10 guys that said, this pisses me off. Screw whatever free speech excuse you're using for this, which that is not free speech when you're ripping those flags down. It's a government building.
Yeah.
You're ripping those flags off of a government building. Even if it's a private building, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, what was the charge what was the charge for Adam Johnson when he moved a lectern 30 feet, took a picture, moved a lectern, and then dropped it?
Oh God, what's the charge every time someone peels out on a flag, pride flag on the street?
Yeah.
It's a hate crime.
Right.
But they can do that crap. You tell me there's not 10 guys that said no? I'm not letting you do that? Guys, men, I'm glad the camera's on me. Where are your freaking balls, man? Pick them up, especially if you're in D.C. Do not let this crap happen. Good gosh.
Disgusting.
That's absolutely true. I mean, every state throughout history has always had something approximating a blasphemy law, whether it was like a religious monarchy or any state. There's going to be something that you're not allowed to criticize or defame. And in America right now, it's like the woke stuff. I mean, you can't peel out over a pride flag mural. You can't peel out over the like Black Lives Matter street in DC. I mean, if you do that, you will be prosecuted. You will be arrested. And that doesn't go for the American flag as a symbol of American people, because the only consequence that you face nowadays is if you are actually like a patriot. Like if you are doing things, taking an unguided tour of the Capitol, they launched the biggest investigation in the history of the DOJ. But I have to hear online so much about how, you know, the one thing that you can't criticize is the state of Israel. But then you've got these people doing things like this, all an outgrowth of leftist activism. I mean, mechanically speaking, these protests are identical to the BLM protests, to Antifa. I mean, it's all one big machine, which is weaponized against American patriots and the symbols of our national identity. So that is the one thing you're not allowed to do. I mean, I saw you have a clip queued up where I think they put like insects.
Not supposed to jump the gun on that, John.
Yeah, free speech, by the way. Unfiltered, by the way. Unfiltered.
No, hold on. The name of the show is Sara Gonzales Unfiltered. It's not John Doyle Unfiltered.
It was asked to be a guest.
By the way, there are many people who have some questions about my last Friday's show, and they're very concerned that you and I are in a fight. Well, we weren't, but now we are.
I said that we had some editorial disagreements. You wanted E-Block to be bad. I wanted it to be good. And so we just disagreed on that. And so I
said, bye. I'm leaving. I don't take this anymore.
Yeah,
no, we're not.
Stormed off set. The Nancy Pelosi impression, that's real alcohol, by the way. This person it's all going to come out. It's all going to come out.
Can I
real quick?
Just real quick. I just want to clarify from what I said before. That doesn't even have to be violence involved. All you have to do is show courage.
Yeah.
Take a look at the frat boys over in Carolina. What was it, the UNC or whatever? All it took was courage. They just stood there.
Yeah.
That's all they did. That's all you have to do is just have courage, and it's infectious, and it'll spread. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. All right, John alluded to it earlier. So obviously they're all protesting because Benjamin Netanyahu was here speaking before Congress today. And the Palestinian Youth Movement shared a video claiming that they threw a bunch of maggots and bugs on the table, Netanyahu's table at the Watergate Hotel in D.C. Blech. That's disgusting. They said, bon appetit, maggots released on the criminal Zionist war table.
Was the Secret Service guarding that area as well?
Probably.
What the hell is happening with the Secret Service?
That's what I'm wondering. I mean,
you get that close to do that.
And why? And who picked up all these bugs and decided they
probably just like